Well, on to the Oakbay Pravin Gordhan affidavit saga. Oakbay Investment today is submitting an affidavit in response to the Minister of Finance's 2016 application. Gordhan last year had put in a plea for a legal ruling from the South African courts that he has no legal responsibility to intervene in the Oakbay's dispute with South Africa's big four banks regarding the closure of its bank accounts. Oakbay is submitting the affidavit in the Gauteng division of the High Court. Now, if we look back, what Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan states in his affidavit is that Oakbay is pressuring him to intervene despite knowledge of his legal limitations. And what he really seeks is a court order to bar government intervention in a client bank matter. What it implies is that the Finance Minister is citing pressure from Oakbay to stop own cabinet colleagues from probing the bank's conduct. He also states that the court should declare intervention by executive illegal in client bank matters. And what he really asks for is a court order to cover up serious allegations of banks' collusion and a political conspiracy to shut down Oakbay businesses. Now, what it implies is that Gordhan wants the court to believe the smokescreen of the alleged Oakbay pressure to intervene. Also in the affidavit, Gordhan states that suspicious transactions reported to the Financial Intelligence Centre reveal serious state of affairs. And what the minister really intends to do is to play on the general perception that Oakbay businesses are involved in corruption. And this implies that Finance Minister is using suspicious transactions that cannot be used as evidence to publicly damage Oakbay. Well, now here are some of the aspects where Gordhan's affidavit borders suspicion. Now, firstly, the Finance Minister's unusual plea seeks court to confirm legal advice as he confesses to have received already. Finance Minister attaches Financial Intelligence Centre certificate on suspicious transactions as evidence when FIC says it has little evidential value. Finance Minister argues for keeping client bank details secret, yet releases inconclusive FIC certificate to Oakbay's detriment. Now, Gordhan is the sole applicant from the government seeking non-interference order. The Cabinet, as a collective, had earlier raised concerns about the bank's conduct. Court move infringes on Cabinet's prerogative to decide on judicial probe recommendation made by the IMC. Well, this has been Oakbay's reaction to Gordhan's plea so far. Now, firstly, Oakbay says Gordhan is misleading by claiming Oakbay pressured him to intervene illegally in bank client matters. That Oakbay only asked several authorities, including Gordhan, for assistance to help save 7,500 jobs, or that the Finance Minister should withdraw court application and not waste taxpayers' money as Oakbay has no dispute with him. That Oakbay believes all transactions are legally compliant and group will file details in due time. And to discuss further on this matter, joining me in studio is ANN7 business editor Clive Ramathibela-Smith and the ANN7 resident political analyst Mahlangu. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me right here in studio. I'll first toss a question to you, Mr. Mahlangu. Now, Oakbay is submitting its affidavit in the Gauteng High Court division. What do you make of this entire situation?
There's a lot of political collusion, Matapelo, in even the sense that Mr. Pravin Gordhan is the head of all financial institutions in this country, unless he's giving the impression that the banks are above him. And if he gives the impression that ABSA is above him, then I worry as a citizen of this country, because then ABSA will never pay back the money they looted. For a minister to go to the High Court and ask for an order to keep him quiet. He's asking the court for a gag so that he does not have to act against the banks that closed accounts without evidence. And so what Oakbay has come to the court to say is, where is the proof? Give us the guarantees, present the documents. If there is illegal or shady dealings, then come out and say it. But what the minister has gone to defend is for the court to put a gag on him so that he does not need to act against the banks. This is what this is about. And this is also, I think, an amazing element because the Oakbay Gupta family has gone to the Consumer Affairs Division, the consumer rights the South African Reserve Bank, they've written to the Office of the President to say we need intervention. Now, also remember that Oakbay employs just over 7,500 people, just over 7,500 people. That's a lot of lives. And, you know, to want to shut down those businesses and shut accounts really puts a lot of South African citizens at risk. And so they have approached the courts to say, let the minister speak. So the minister's presented himself. He's gone to find lawyers to defend himself. And Oakbay was saying, but you're not the target. We're not taking you to court. Why are you finding a defense? He's gone to find, is it Jeremy, who's a very big lawyer in this country, for his defense. And Oakbay is saying that's not what we're about. If there is collusion and we are not part of a political ploy, then allow the banks in this country to speak why our accounts are closed. But they cannot do that. And Mr. Gordhan is looking for a gagging order for him to not say why the banks shut down the Oakbay accounts. So obviously it's got more political intent than any business dealing can find.
Now, Clive, let's just outline the role that has to be played by the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, and him having the authority of having actually issued banks to close up their accounts. Just speak more on this.
I mean, thanks very much, Mahlangu. I think the most important thing is to understand the dynamics from law so that we're all clear and we understand what is at stake. So, for example, we have the Financial Intelligence Centre, which acts under the Financial Intelligence Act of South Africa, and the revised one that is post-apartheid. So we are supposed to use these laws, for example, to promote investment in the country. We're supposed to use them to control any unlawful actions that might take place within businesses. The Financial Intelligence Centre can also probe into suspicions when it comes to transactions by both business and individuals to make sure that they're working things above the board. Now, in this particular case, we have a very interesting story where Oakbay's accounts were shut by the banks, and they cited no tangible reasons with regards to why. Now, for a country like ours, who's supposed to be attracting business and attracting foreign direct investments, we have a business now that is has its heart and soul in the country, which is now being put at a predicament because they cannot operate efficiently because none of the banks in the country are willing to work with them. If there was actually an act or a break in law, which the Financial Intelligence Centre would have found, and it was legitimate, and it was supposed to be utilised, therefore, to say this is the reasons why, it would make sense. But in this case, we seem to be playing cat and mouse. It seems like we still haven't had clarity with regards to the reasons behind Oakbay's accounts being closed. We still don't have a basis of regards to why it is that the Oakbay's executives were not explained to in thorough why their accounts have been shut. So it seems like we've been using the act. What was quite interesting as well is how the Mr. Pravin Gordhan's affidavit was done. The fact that he would have raised an issue about the Financial Intelligence Centre, despite knowing very well that to do so, he would need actually to provide evidence. So it was as if he incited something which evidently was not supposed to be put on the table, but he came up with these statements that come from the Financial Intelligence Centre. Now, just to put you at rest, every day there's millions upon millions of transactions that can be suspected as a red flag. That's a very good thing because it tests that our systems are actually working. So it is very important that we understand that. So if there were such incidents, for example, and there were serious allegations about suspected transactions, those should have been reported. And if they were flagged and they were not reported, then you ask yourself, then what is the reason behind it? You know what I mean? So the question, therefore, from my side is it worth it? Is this exercise worth it? Is it worth taxpayers' money? Should we be running after people, despite the fact that there was no actual legal basis for them to do so, and there was no legal intention by Oakbay to do so? So the question is, therefore, therefore, we start to ask, I mean, are we making it easy for business to operate
well, without
in the country?
interrupting you, Clive, Mr. Mahlangu, I actually want to pose a question to you with regards to what Clive is saying. Is this exercise worth it? Is it worth the taxpayers' money? But before we do that, A7 reporter Mthunzi Mbata is actually joining us live from the newsroom. Mthunzi, just take us through a brief summary of this ongoing matter with the Oakbay Group versus the Finance Minister, or rather ABSA.
Well, the Minister is approaching the court to say, don't let me intervene. He's citing alleged pressure from Oakbay. But Oakbay is saying, we're not putting pressure on the Minister, but we're appealing to his political responsibility as Minister of Finance to help protect jobs. As you know, that one of the responsibilities of the ministry is creating jobs. So if the Minister is not intervening in actually protecting jobs, that's the crux of the Oakbay matter.
Well, thank you so much, Mthunzi. We will definitely get back to you for more on this. Now, to quickly go back to you, Mr. Mahlangu, your response to exactly what Clive is saying. Is this exercise worth it? Is it worth the taxpayers' money?
It's definitely not worth the taxpayers' money. How do you use taxpayers' money to close the accounts of people who are the taxpayers, for that matter, who feed so many lives? And I don't know who's paying for Mr. Gordon's legal team, his representation, but I do hope that he's paying, for them himself. It also poses a question: why does he need representation? Because no one is after Mr. Gordon unless there's a political ploy here. Why should those accounts be closed? And the simple matter is, if Mr. Gordon, you can produce the evidence. But he's saying in his affidavit, he is not entitled to enter any bank-client relationship. He then brings documents from the Financial Intelligence Center and says, well, these are my documents, these are the documents of these companies that I don't want to get involved in. But that is against what he's saying. He has now interrogated the confidentiality of those clients anyway by getting those documents. So he says, well, I'm not involved, I cannot enter. Well, he's very much involved because he is the Minister of Finance. And being the Minister of Finance in this country, who do we escalate it to? If the Minister of Finance in any country says, well, I cannot get involved if the banks rob your money. So Mathapelo, you've got 200,000 in your account and you wake up one morning and you don't have money anymore. And then you want to escalate this matter to the highest body or the highest representative of financial matters in this country, who is the Finance Minister. And if the Finance Minister then can make a statement and says, well, I'm not getting involved in in bank and client issues, then that effectively means he's not the Minister of Finance in this country.
Yeah, well, Sfiso, I'll have to ask you to hold it there for just a minute while A7 reporter Giovanni Majana also joins us live. Giovanni, thank you so much for joining us. Just paint us a picture of the current situation on the ground. Has the affidavit been submitted as of yet?
On the ground, we are currently waiting for the legal team to come through and obviously hand in the affidavit, which is the event happening today at the High Court in Pretoria. We know that the events leading to today's activity have been surrounded by political clouds and conspiracies. As the financial minister, we know that Pravin Gordhan should actually be the one having a say in the issues between the banks and the business accounts that have been closed on regards to the Gupta-owned businesses. We know that this has also risen a lot of eyebrows and questions have come from this. There's a lot of suspicion looming in regards to why Pravin Gordhan, the Minister of Finance, has also been needing to advice from a legal team. This obviously has brought up a lot of eyebrows and a lot of questions, and that has been the cloud in terms of the events leading to today's activities.
Well, thank you so much, Giovanni, for that update. Now, going back to our in-studio chat. Now, Clive, how do you actually think that this whole situation is going to pan out, taking in regards all the legalities involved and the roles that people play?
I believe that we are seeing something which is very ugly turning out where we're taking each other to court for matters that we shouldn't be taking each other to court for. I think what the Oakbay executive had asked for was for the minister to see what is the best possible way to resolve this particular issue. Again, it seems like we've taken things to the courts when it's something that could have easily been resolved with just engagement and talking and having a dialogue. However, I just want to stress this particular point as well, and that is that you need business to have a very good relationship with government, and that's very important. And one of the basis of the reasons why we saw Mr. Gordon acting the way that he did, he had said that evidently there were suspicious transactions which had not been reported for the previous 4 years, and yet therefore they come up now because the accounts are now automatically shut. So it raises concern, and should he not be himself involved, he would have been able therefore to appoint someone in a similar role or in a different capacity to be able to resolve this particular issue. I mean, I would hate to think that if tomorrow WBHO has a problem with construction, or even Murray and Roberts has a problem which touches on something that has to do with labour, that if they were to go to the Minister of Labour and say, look, we seek reprieve, how can you help? There shouldn't be an issue about whether the minister should get involved himself. I think the reason why he's not getting involved is the simple reason that he says that these people are the Gupta families involved, and there are people who are influential politically. That's the basis of his reasons. Should that be the case, then, therefore, there is no reason why still, even if these people are political, to show independence, to show that the minister represents the government of the country, the government of the time, there should be no reason why he shouldn't get somebody appointed in a capacity to be making sure that these people are actually being helped. That's what I just don't understand, because any other business, it could be even foreign business for that matter, it could be business from the US, it could be business from wherever, you know, just like when we saw with the trade and industry earlier last year, in actual fact, in the middle of last year, when President Obama got involved in AGOA and said to South Africa, listen, if you don't do this by this date, this is what's going to happen to you. And so therefore, it shows that they have a vested interest. The president, the minister, must show that he's got vested interest in making sure that he promotes good business in the country, that we have jobs, and he makes sure that the investors remain and even continue to invest even further.
Now, Sfiso, Clive is actually reiterating the question on a lot of people's minds, which actually is raising a lot of concern amongst a lot of people. Why is this only panning out now? Why has it taken so much for them to actually pick up this problem?
Well, initially there is no problem per se, besides the fact that the only thing cited by the minister and the bank was that there are reputational risks. And I mean, a reputational risk is when I say I can't be seen with you because you are friends with a person I don't like, or you know, or if me and you are seen walking at the park, we might be misconstrued. That's the definition of reputation or reputational risks. And I don't think that you can charge such a big organization on reputational risks. What are those challenges and what are those defects to reputation, and who has informed you? But if you cannot get involved, and then you want the courts to protect you thereof, for the courts to say, well, we're revoking your responsibility as a Minister of Finance, I think it's very, very dangerous. In fact, I'm hoping that moving on, Mr. Gordon will be seen taking on ABSA. But if this is in light with what we've seen with these documents filed in 2016, how will he ever go to ABSA and claim for them to pay back the money? I think that's a very damaging thought.
Yeah, and it continues to raise more and more
questions. So it continues to raise more and more questions about who in fact is in charge of Treasury in this country, and do we in fact have a minister who can protect the financial rights and the financial interests of South African citizens. And Mr. Gordon is not seemingly up to doing that. I think the challenge comes in this country when there's any organization or any group of people who seem to intimidate white monopoly. And we've seen it in the past and we'll continue to see it. If you reflect or you seem to challenge white monopoly in any way, you are going to be oppressed and victimized, and ashamedly so. those people seem to have the protection of our Minister of Finance.
Well, it also may actually seem that politics are actually clouding this entire situation and more situations in South African economy in particular. Now, what do you actually make of this?
Well, it's politically marked. It's an issue with a lot of political mud. People are trying to deal with President Zuma and, the Gupta family. And if any group of people try to rise in this country and do things with the mark of transformation, President Zuma has come out to say there needs to be very robust engagement to do with transformation. And I think he's made this his legacy project to say there's going to be radical transformation in this country. And that really, sets the wolf among the chickens. And this is politically driven. We do know that Mr. Gordon sits in a lot of boards, some of the boards of the bank. He's been that way for many, many years, and him and his predecessor, Mr. Trevor Manuel and Tito Mboweni, have become the vanguards of white monopoly in this country. And so they have to protect their interest. It is what the people pay them for. So if you're going to mark up and try and transform this country, you're going to be dealt with an underhand. And I think him approaching the courts to say, I want your protection, to have a declaratory order to guard my mouth so I don't need to get involved, is saying I am allowing the banks to deal with people to how they see fit without any commentary from the state, which essentially means that in this country, the banks can do whatever they want to the citizens of this country because we are not protected by our government and we are not protected by our cabinet ministers.